Ladies and gentlemen, how are you doing today? Because I have empathy, the new energy did not kick in till 1:37 a.m. But right about then, I got really happy and have been happy ever since. Now, people say, hey, it's just a year. Nothing really changes. But if you study observational physics, by observing things or putting energy into things, you actually change them. So because everybody believes it's a new year, it is kind of a fresh start. So that's how I'm looking at it. You are allowed to disagree. It is YouTube. You can do that shit. All right. I don't even know where to begin here, so we're going to start with my latest obsession, which has been all this dry, anomalous ocean activity going on in the Caribbean. I would guess it is a sign that in the future we will probably see some type of volcanic activity coming out of the islands, which is scary. Another thing, but we're not here for fear unless that fear gives us a signal that we should be warning and we should be doing something about it, which I think we should. Another concern here is, in my opinion, the models don't seem to be matching up with the amount of moisture that will be coming into Texas, as the red is the dry, and then this stuff is the wetness. And so as you can see over our dry hotspot out in the Gulf, and if there is a big volcano eruption, you would get a large earthquake in the Caribbean. And people might say, hey, that sounds crazy, Thor. But remember, in January, a year ago, we had a 7.6 earthquake in the Caribbean. So I'm not talking out of my ass here. If I was, it would sound like farts. Okay, so Texas, we are worried and concerned about the amount of moisture we're going to be getting, and the Gulf Coast, really, in the next few days. Let me run down what I got prepared for you folks. And now, as you can see, this is all highly anomalous. And there is just some bizarre earth-changing activity going on down in the Caribbean. That cannot be denied. Whatever is going on here, it seems like it is going to pop in one way or another. And seeing as all the moisture is rotating around our section, that's something to pay attention to. And we've seen a lot of volcano activity in the last month, and we saw 5 7.0 or stronger earthquakes in the last 33 days. So shit is going down. Oh man, I didn't have the thing I wanted to up, so I have to now buy your time. And my favorite way of buying your time is by saying, what are you wearing? I'm wearing a t-shirt. It's a Thor News t-shirt, actually. And underwear. Sorry, I just woke up. And and so we have a giant coronal hole that is now Earth facing. So of course we are taking our earthquake watch up a notch. We're taking our volcano activity watch up a notch, and that's a big coronal hole, baby. And then we'll be getting hit with fast solar wind stream in about 2 to 3 days, which means the atmosphere will get a little bit more chaotic. And so, yep, we are going to start off 2019 with some calmness before the storm. And we can all use that calmness, right? What do we got here? Oh, we've been there. And so this is the next 48 hours. And you can see that there's going to be some moisture coming up through Texas, though it cuts it off at about the 36-hour point. But that cloud of moisture I'm looking at doesn't seem to be jibing with whatever the models are telling us. As I was saying, right now, we've started the year off with no real severe weather across the United States, and that is fine. We had a very severe weather 2018, so we can use all the calmness we can. Now, there's just a close-up look at our Caribbean thing, and this is very important. I live 45 miles off the Texas coast, so I'm as interested in this situation as anyone. Now, this is almost a week from now. We're looking at the wind gusts, and as you can see, we're getting a lot of giant wind properties that are moving across the planet. So prepare for some windy times ahead. Now, let me me get to this first before I go here. So this is this low pressure spot I've been obsessed with. We had a 6.3 earthquake here a day ago. The blue is low pressure, which usually means you're going to get rain under there and wind. And so there's a lot of moisture around total cloud water. And so we're looking at our Texas moisture spot again. That's a lot of moisture to draw from to pull up the Gulf and into the East Coast. And then we're watching this entire water complex and how it moves into the West Coast. 24 hours ago, the models had California getting hit California, Oregon. Like, look at that storm coming to California. 24 hours ago, the models had it like 3 times as worse as this. And it had one of the storms pretty much bringing rain to the entire West Coast for about 50 hours. The models look to have changed in 24 hours quite a bit. And to the downside, which they usually do up until the storm starts to get here. And so right now we'll pick somewhere in between. And so, yeah, I think the West Coast is going to have some problems over the next 2 weeks. The Gulf Coast is going to have problems. And one of the things is the pattern for almost all of 2018 was moisture comes in through here, goes down, it explodes, and then it comes back out through there. We're now seeing moisture come in from the equatorial electric jet line, and then at times when it's rotating around the Caribbean high, it's here. So we're now back to a point where we can get 3 moisture streams at once, which will cause some pretty major storms. And so for the next week, Texas all the way along the coast and up the coast is going to be on watch, and then all of the West Coast is definitely going to be on watch because we're going to have to watch the severity of these storms. Another thing I'd like to point out is the models have been saying, if you've been following me, you know I've been obsessed with this thing right here. And the models have been saying that this thing was going to break up into like 4 little low pressures and then move around. That obviously did not happen. And so, you know, the models are really unreliable right now. We're just watching it day by day. And as usual, one of the best people that breaks down is crankywxguy. He has a blog. He breaks everything down. And he can actually predict and show examples of what is probably going to happen weeks ahead of time, sometimes even months. So I'll leave a link for his blog in my information box. Another thing is we set so many records for Anthony Macelio as a Red Fight Club All-Star also. We set so many records for rainfall in 2018, it's obscene. As you can see, this is for New York wind gust reports. It's going to be a windy year. And on my planetary orbital angular momentum theory, we're going to see earthquake and volcano activity for the next 6 years. And that's how I have been so accurate. Last year in 2018, I predicted we'd see a record number of nor'easters. We saw a record number of nor'easters. I predicted for the second year in a row we'd get hit by 2 or more hurricanes. We got hit by 2 or more hurricanes. And I predicted an increase in volcano and earthquake activity, and that happened. I did that by combining the sun and the heat from volcanoes and the volcanic activity itself. And so that is not something most scientists do. So that is why I have been what seems to be more accurate than many. And so I think there's some validity to my theories. And I'm guessing that a lot of people are here because they believe that as well. So if you're new, it's just something to think about. I know it goes against it's counter to your programming. Science likes to tell you carbon is everything and the only thing that ever matters. But I'm pretty sure the sun is important. All the planets are important. Volcanoes are definitely important. Yeah. So like I said, I mean, if we see a large volcano eruption in the Caribbean, then my theory seems to be working. And if we see earthquakes and volcanoes on the West Coast, then my theory is definitely working. But I'm not really that worried about a West Coast volcano until next summer. So we have until then to prepare. As you can see, you have wave after wave after wave coming into the West Coast. How much of it gets pulled up into Alaska? And how much of it makes the coast, I don't know. But as you can see, there's actually, not only is it coming from the Pacific, but it's also coming from the southern Pacific as far as moisture. There are moisture patterns being pulled out of here. And there's a lot of moisture down here to be dealt with. You see how it's pulling it up from two different places? And then if that adds from the Caribbean, we're going to have some big problems. And so, take a look at people over the pond. That would be our Brexiteers, people in Europe, Africa, Spain, India, stuff like that. Luckily for them, the magnetic pole pressure seems to be pulling a lot of the moisture up straight north, so it's not hitting the UK as bad as it could be. But you guys are still in for some wild weather, and as I've stated before, these models don't seem to be that accurate more than 24 or 48 hours out. But the high pressure system over Europe looks to be knocking most of the rain and moisture away. We will have to continue because, man, life just gets more interesting now, doesn't it? Now, when the sun acts weird, Earth weather acts weird, and then people act weird. And so we're looking at some of the iridescence in the sky. As the sun changes, the Earth changes, and we change. And so it's becoming more colorful than Steve. And when people are like, man, it ain't changing. Well, Steve is a whole brand new thing. And they can't really explain what Steve is, this purple, new purple aurora-like thing going on. And then we get multiple rainbows. And last year I showed when the sun actually showed something that looked like this. And then we've been seeing it in the sky. So as goes the sun, goes Earth. As above, so below. So I'm here doing what I can for you guys. And we are in the first, second, third part of the Save Thor News period where every single month for the last 3 years, I've literally paid rent and all bills based off y'all's contributions and donations. And it is definitely, again, like every month, going to take a major miracle for me to survive and thrive this month. But now's the time over the next 72 hours where if you want to keep me alive, up and running, and electricity on, I heavily depend on your contributions and donations. It looks like I'm going to need a very generous miracle this year to make it, but I'm not going to lose faith because it's happened every time, and I sure as heck did a wonderful job in 2018. You guys got a whole lot of bang for your buck. So I'll leave my PayPal link in the information box, and I would appreciate any contributions and donations. If you can't afford it, I totally understand, and prayers definitely help as well. Love you guys. Everybody stay cool, and I will be talking to you a lot over the next 72 hours. God bless everyone.